Welcome to the grand finals of this year's StarCraft 2 World Championships. What I've got for you today is a best of 9 series. That means we get no map vetoes. The only thing the players get to do is choose the order in which the maps are being played. It's time for a best of 9 series of top level StarCraft 2 for the lion's share of $1 million. The winner of this particular series takes home $400,000. The loser, I know, this is gonna be embarrassing. The loser of the series only gets 150 grand. Spawning right here in the top right-hand corner. In game number 1, we find ourselves on the map Crimson Court, playing with the red Zerg pieces. We're looking at none other than Serral. His opponent, down in the bottom left, playing with the blue SCVs, he goes by the name of Clem. So, this particular series was played a few days ago during the Esports World Cup. This is, well, the new World Championship for StarCraft 2. Normally, in the past, we had BlizzCons, obviously. We also had the IEM Katowice tournament for some years, where we crowned the new World Champion. But for the very first time this year around, we've got ourselves a World Championship that takes place in August. So the previous World Champion may have actually been the longest running World Champion, now that I think about it. Oliveira won in early 2023, February 2023, and sadly for him, he could not do the back-to-back this time around. Now, is it a surprise to see Serral and Clem in the grand finals? Not necessarily so. I would imagine a lot of people would say, yeah, Serral, pretty much a guarantee, because the guy is ridiculously good. But Clem, maybe a bit more of a question mark, but he did spend a lot of time over in Korea, and I don't think anybody's all too surprised to see him doing extremely well. Now, I was there at the EWC, at the Esports World Cup. Obviously, I'm very active in the StarCraft community, so I do know who ends up winning this particular series, but sadly for me, I haven't really had a close look at the games just yet, so very excited to find out exactly what ended up going down between these two. I was there as part of the EWC Central broadcast, which is basically the mainstream of the entirety of the Esports World Cup. So there's, I think, like 20-something games in total over the course of like 2 months, and I was part of the Central stream as the StarCraft 2 expert? That's what they called me, but I feel a little dirty just calling myself an expert, but I guess I know the game quite well. Anyways, it was a lot of fun. We obviously kept track of the other games going on as well last week, so I didn't get to watch nearly as much StarCraft 2 as I would have liked to, but it was actually an absolute blast, and I guess one nice little benefit is that I've not really seen many of the games, and even though I do know the results, journey before destination as always. Even though I do know the results, I think it's it's gonna be nice for me to go ahead and cast the very best games that, well, were played at this tournament over the next couple of weeks. So if you aren't subscribed already, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get notified as soon as new videos go live. And obviously, while you're at it, please take the 1 second that it takes to hit the like button down below if you are a fan of high-level StarCraft. All right, enough about me. This is not about me. It's about these guys. Now, I would give you the full rundown of all of the results of these players for this particular event, but I think I'm probably gonna... it's gonna spoil a lot of the results of other games that are played, and I think it's more fun if we... You could probably Google it pretty easily. You know what? I'll go ahead and leave a link to the Wikipedia page down below in the description of this video if you want to have an in-depth look at exactly what ended up going down. Alrighty. So, Clem went over to South Korea, practiced for the last month or two. He seems to have reached a new high, specifically when it comes to playing against the Korean players. Okay, now Serral ultimately does snipe the Reaper there, but it created a distraction for the Hellions to drive in. Good defense, as is to be expected right here from Serral, who opened up without Zergling speed, by the way. This is a good scout for Clem. He actually notices that the third base has not been taken. There's Overlord speed on the production tab as well. I wonder if Clem is picking up on that right now. Good snipe right there, trying to get some damage done, but ultimately only a single Zergling? What? Hold up, how did... I think that was the Reaper early on when it first jumped in, wasn't it? One Zergling? Okay, well that's the Serral we all know and love. So, Serral decided to go for an Overlord speed rush. This is a lair together with Overlord speed, meaning that he can, well, morph the Overlords into Dropper Lords and bring the Queens towards the other side of the map. That is the only reason to go ahead and do that as an early game option. So I think Brenda, Karen, okay, Margaret's already in. They're going to be going across. Oliveira was another opponent that Serral played at this event. And I actually didn't realize that this is what happened in game number 1 between these two. Serral did basically an identical build against Oliveira, and what's really cool is that after that particular series was played, during breakfast, I was sitting right next to Clem, and Clem mentioned that this is a scary build, but he was gonna change his strategy compared to the one that Oliveira played. So let's see how this goes then here for Clem. He opened up with a lot more Marines than Oliveira did, and he decides to go out onto the map and meet some of these units head on. This is going to slow down the aggression here from Serral a lot. Clem right now hunting down that Overlord. He knows where Brenda is. He can smell Brenda from a mile away, and it seems like she went down. She's dead. This is a beautiful hold right here from Clem. So this is awesome. Clem actually doing what he expected, right? So doing what he expected right here from Serral. This is a map that, generally speaking, Zerg players don't really love it so much. So it's kind of cool to see Clem looking at the games that Serral played earlier on in this tournament and then adjusting his playstyle accordingly. So this, I think, is the identical build that Serral played against Oliveira. And against Oliveira, it worked like a charm. Alright, so the follow-up right now from the Zerg is going to be +1/+1. Roach speed just finished up, so there's going to be a continued dance here at the front, but truth be told, this is a bit of a disaster right here for Serral. It's a committed push, and he really didn't get any damage done. Yeah, 0 workers killed in total, and considering there was a fast 3rd command center, this is the perfect early game right here for Clem. He's finding himself going up against a Zerg right now that is basing his unit composition around roaches, and he is still ahead in supply. That is an insanely good position to be in. Generally speaking, roaches and ravagers are very supply heavy. It's not entirely uncommon to see Terran slightly ahead as far as the supply count goes against Zerglings and Banelings, but against Roach Ravager, this is basically the best case scenario. Serral's gonna try and see if he can go straight into the infestation pit as well. I guess the plan is to try and go up towards a quick hive and then maybe into lurkers or something along those lines. Maybe at least a bunch of vipers. It could be adrenal glands as well. This is not really a situation where he could mess around and go into swarm hosts, but yeah, nicely done here by Clem. He expected this build order from Serral, he expected the push, and he handled that absolutely brilliantly. He also did it in such a way, though, that it's not actually that committed of an early game for him, right? It's not like he was just narrowing in on that defense, but he already had a 3rd command center done. He's gonna go into the 2nd factory right now, 4th CC as well. This is an opener right here for Clem, where he can easily build on it. No particular weakness here for the Terran at this point in time, and it was pretty obvious, looking at the previous games that Clem played, that the man was feeling incredibly strong. Solid micro, solid macro. Clem, one of the very few players right now who seems to be able to stutter step 2 different fights at the same time. I don't know how. Like, just micro, dude. Just stutter step 2 armies and then macro at home. Just play better. No, it's actually insane. Clem really does seem to be on another level right now. Ooh. Oh, he gets the snipe. Oh, that was... Woo, okay. So I'm actually gonna back up because that was a really smooth little play there as well. So I was talking about Serral going quick hive. Sure, that is happening right here, but he also made 2 infestors. What Clem does here is he gets rid of a couple of those creep tumors, denying Serral's vision on the other side of this line of sight blocker. So this is where the infestors go forward, and Serral doesn't see the Marines and the Marauders, but because the Medivacs are flying units, they can see over that little line of sight blocker. And Clem snipes one of those infestors brilliantly, but he idled for just a little bit in the tall grass to wait until that Zerg unit came a little bit closer. So he got the perfect snipe. Alrighty, now lurkers are on the horizon. It's gonna take a little while though until those units really hit the battlefield. Generally, Brenda, no! Okay, reincarnated. She got the same name. It's a long story. Anyways, brilliant snipes right here by Clem, who got ahead at like minute 4 and is now finding himself just building upon that advantage. The scariest thing though at this point here for the Terran is certainly the lurker den. He doesn't know where it is located. Serral actually purposely trying to hide it a little bit. He doesn't really know exactly what the weapon of choice here from the Zerg is going to be, but I think you can guess it, right? He's seen the Hydras right now too. It is quite obvious that at this point in time, that's the real only counter to these Terran bio pushes. So is Clem gonna try and shut this down before lurkers properly hit the battlefield? Or is he gonna go straight into ghosts? Or you know what? He's doing both. Infestor, fungal growth would be important. Great attack here though, once again by Clem. He's catching his opponent right before those lurkers really come out in large numbers. Keep in mind that lurkers without upgrades are not particularly strong, and those essentially lair tech lurkers here from Serral end up getting sniped easy peasy. Okay, more lurkers being target fired down here. Clem trying his best to just maximize the damage output. And keep in mind, these are not very important troops here for Clem to lose at all. He can very quickly replace. Serral just taps out. GG. And just like that, we find ourselves on Golden Aura. Now, one of the returning questions that I kept getting on the EWC Central stream, the main broadcast, from people that aren't all too familiar with StarCraft 2 is why do the pro gamers leave the game early? So the two other games that were running while I was there as the StarCraft 2 expert, apparently that's what I am. The other games running were EAFC, FIFA, the modern version of FIFA, as well as Call of Duty. And in those two games, apparently it is absolutely unheard of to leave the game early. So it was actually really fun. I got to discuss a lot of the details. So on the very first day of the broadcast that we did, I essentially just talked about the absolute basics of StarCraft 2. Simple things as, what is the production tab? How do you make units? Where do the larvae come from, right? The absolute basics of StarCraft. And then as the game progressed and as the days progressed, we got to talk a little bit more about all of the different details and stuff, but it was really fun. From what I understand, there were quite a few people that effectively used our stream as a, as like an airport, you know? Like they watched our stream, they're like, hey, this StarCraft game looks pretty great. I'm gonna go ahead and watch the main stream instead. So, good job, me. I think it's probably a good thing. Anyways, it's been fun though to try and get people excited for this game, and looking at the viewer numbers for the StarCraft 2 tournament in general, it's so good, dude. After 14 years of StarCraft, right? Still see so many people tuning in. Anyways, let's see. Gonna be a quick command center right here on Golden Aura. Serral once again opening up with a hatchery first. So what exactly went wrong in game number 1? Well, Serral decided to go for an attack that looked a lot like a previous game that he had already played during this exact same tournament. And it's a clear example of Clem studying the opponents. Going into this particular event, we don't really know too much about Serral's performance. So, in case you are not aware, Serral is currently doing his military service. So in Finland, they have like, I think it's like a 6 to 12 months or so of military service, depending on the branch of the military you're in. Serral, because he's in like a special department of the military, he gets to, I guess, request time away, and he gets a little bit of time to practice as well. But obviously, he's not been practicing nearly as much as he ordinarily would be. Plus, I guess he's busy during the week as well, just, you know, I don't know what he does in the military. I have no idea. I've tried figuring this out. We don't really know exactly what his routine is like in the military. Anyways, long story short, we don't really know exactly what Serral's skill level is at this year, but we didn't know that either for the ESL Master Spring Tournament that took place about 2 months ago. And, well, I guess I can spoil that event because it's been a little while. Serral ended up winning the competition and destroyed everybody, only dropping 2 maps to Oliveira in the entire event. It was a 4-0 victory for Serral in the grand finals over Maru, and Serral just seems to be, yeah, he seemed to be like 7 steps better than anybody else at that event. So he was already in the military back then. He was a big question mark going into that event. And even though it's once again a few months later for this particular tournament, it's safe to assume that Serral's really good at the game, right? But there's not really any games. The reason why I'm bringing this up, there's not really any games that Clem could have really studied featuring Serral going into this tournament. I'm sure the man did his homework in Korea, studying all of the other opponents and all of their recent games. But yeah, for Serral, bit of a question mark. So nice to see him using the information that is at his disposal from the previous games that Serral played at this same event. Luckily for him, I guess, there was already a Terran opponent that Serral managed to take down. Because of that, he adjusted his strategy on Crimson Court, and now we're doing a very normal build. So this is a 1-1-1 opener with a quick third command center. So 1 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport. It's gonna be Heli and Benchy. If Serral is feeling cheesy once again, say he wants to rush out a bunch of roaches across the map once more, this Benchy timing, generally speaking, deals with that quite nicely. Queen's moving forward. And on this map, it's not really easy for Clem to push in. It's not easy for Serral to push in either. Generally speaking, Golden Aura. I think it's safe to assume that this is the most defensive map that we currently have in the map pool. At the very least, the first 4 bases for each of the players is going to be very accessible. So not surprised here to see both players playing a bit more of a macro-focused style for now. Okay. Clem, by the way, did play in quite a few events. Surprised me a little bit. Oh, gets the snipe on the mule with 1 cheeky little Zergling. Not bad, actually. It doesn't show up in the unit's kill tab, because, well, I guess the mule only cost energy. They don't cost any resources, but there were still at least like 100 minerals or so of mining left in that particular mule. It's gonna be a lair together with a Baneling Nest before the evolution chamber here. 4th hatchery starts up, but the Hellions are here right as the hatchery starts. And that is really quite good here for the Terran player. Forces the council on the 4th hatch. Not a lot, it only just began, but that is still a bunch of resources down the drain for Serral, and I would say probably about 20 seconds as well. And as we all know, Clem is a very momentum-based player. And now the Banshees show up as well, because the Queens are still around. No detection available here for the Zerg just yet. Is he gonna get a second cancel? If he gets a second cancel, this game is pretty much over. That shifts the momentum so... yeah, he's gonna get it. That shifts it so heavily in favor of the Terran. Clem is he's gonna feel real good about it. Now, there is another expansion coming up for the Zerg, and there is also a Link counterattack. Hellions are, of course, on the other side. Banshees are being traced down right now, but... 2 SCVs in total in this game. Good crisis management here by Clem. He also killed all of those Lings pretty much, and only 3 of them remain. Yeah, this is once again a flying start right here for Clem. He does end up losing one of the Banshees, but... those are really not that critical. Moving forward into the rest of the tournament, and into the rest of this particular match. Okay, so... one thing to note, actually, that I don't believe I have mentioned just yet, is that for the very first time in 14 years of constant competition, this is the very first time that we have a tournament with a $1 million prize pool. So, very impressive to, still get such big improvements. It's actually kind of insane. If you compare the prize pools we had in the early days of StarCraft 2 to where we are at right now, like there's players out there, like for example, Teja. Teja was one of the very best players when it came to the weekend tournaments in particular. He won like a dozen of them, but it was all like, you know, 10k at a time, right? Which obviously wasn't bad. Don't get me wrong, he ended up winning quite a few of them throughout his years of competition, but for one tournament to have 400k. Anyways, we have a big Marine attack on the left side of the map, but at the same time, finally Serral manages to get some damage done. Looks like it's gonna come at the cost of the hatchery though, and this is now the 3rd time that a 4th base dies. He did make another expansion here, so I guess this is once more a 4th expansion, but it is all a little bit rough here for Serral. The fact that he killed 16 SCVs, or the fact rather that he killed Serral, he killed 18 of them right now in total. That is quite a lot. That makes this game manageable for the Zerg, but he needed a little bit of luck there. And I don't think Serral is all too happy with the way that this is going so far. Because if there's one thing he likes to do is outplay his opponents, and that is certainly not happening so far in this particular game. We're apparently going to trade out a bunch of units here as well. Once more, though, there was another little run-by on the other side of the map, and 13 workers end up going down. Benchy goes into the main base. Okay, does get sniped. Yeah, it's very obvious here that despite the worker kills, Clem here is in the driver's seat. 30 SCVs down the drain, which is kind of rough, but I think it's recoverable. He's got a 4th command center. Like, losing 30 SCVs at minute 9 or so, minute 8, is not quite the same as losing them at like minute 4. because there's a lot more income to go around in general. But obviously this is a pretty easy situation as well for Serral, other than the fact that he now lost his 4th base 3 times. Luckily for him, he did already make another hatch. So rather than going for a macro hatchery, for example, in the main base to generate more larvae, I think this effectively was supposed to be the macro hatchery that he would maybe send drones to a little bit later on into the game. Luckily for Serral, he decided to build it on position, so he actually had a little bit of a backup plan there. Here comes Clem once again, though. One big thing to note is that because of the build order Serral chose, it was a quick lair with a quick baneling speed, he delayed his Evo Chamber upgrades. So those Evo Chamber upgrades right now are not really in that great of a spot. Clem is going to finish up 2-2. A little bit of a mistake right there with the armor, or at the very least he didn't prioritize it. He is going to finish the +2 attack a little bit before the Zerg will be able to finish up a similar upgrade. So those Marines are going to hit quite the power spike. Now once more, we have a Zerg in counter attack trying to be annoying. This would be the perfect opportunity for Clem to fight, because he just finished up the upgrade. I don't think he's going to be... He's not going to be able to make much use of the window, because it's already closing. Serral is going to be able to catch up as far as those upgrades go. Okay, so Infestation Pit is relatively late. Again, Serral, because of those hatchery losses, he needed to make a decision. And apparently the decision from him was to delay the upgrades for quite a while. I think it's a clever play when it comes to staying alive in the game, but it's not a very strong play overall, because there's no timing attack lining this up right now for Serral. There is no way for him to stay ahead in upgrades, or to even stay remotely similar in upgrades. Unless Terran makes a blunder, it is pretty much always negative EV, right? It's never really going to be a strong play to sit around on Hydraling Bane in the mid game right now. Because unlike Zerg, right? Zerg needs a hive, an infestation pit into a hive in order to go into the +3 upgrades. Terran just needs to have the armory. So you need an armory in order to go for +2/+2. Clem is already going into +3 right now as well. He already had that structure done. He can really push ahead when those upgrades hit, if he realizes that Zerg is a little bit behind in that department. Feels good to talk about some of the details, by the way. I feel like I feel like I've been talking about the absolute details of StarCraft 2 for like a week straight. It's nice to nerd out over more specifics. I really do like the positioning, by the way, here from Serral. Just constantly outside of the vision tower's radius. So he doesn't actually see, Clem that is, that there are a bunch of those banelings hiding over there. Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that Serral managed to get all those worker kills with 2 baneling run-bys that were successful, I think this game would have been an absolute disaster. And I think relying on any mistakes from the opponent is kind of rough. So here comes Serral once again. I love that Widowmine positioning. A couple of the Banes will hit the SCVs, but nothing all too crazy. And in the meantime, Clem is going in for an attack over here on the left side of the map. Clem is constantly fighting, by the way. Very frequently at the highest level even do we see players wait until upgrades are done before they fight, but apparently Clem is just fighting the entire time. Not bad. He's making it difficult for Serral to really get any sort of creep spread out. So we have a couple of tumors here in the middle, sure. We have a couple as well right over there on the mini-map reaching up north. But no, these fights aren't it. Serral can't really find a foothold. Now he does have a couple of Vipers. Blinding Clouds here, or maybe the Siege Tank could be nice, but this is Siege Tanks together with Widow Mines, and Widow Mines are unaffected by Blinding Clouds. Ghosts are coming up right now too. The one issue, I guess, for Clem is because he's fighting non-stop, the medevacs are pretty much out of energy. This is a first world Terran problem right there. He's macroing at home, though, going into his second starport right now in a very curious position. It's actually fine, but it looks a bit dumb inside of the mineral line in a natural. Anyways, he's going to be able to start up that Liberator transition together with Ghosts, and that is, of course, the late game that Terrans like to go for. Important hold there for Serral, who's doing a great job there, splitting up against all of those Widow Mines. Vipers stay alive for now as well. I would love to see a Parabomb to try and reduce the medevac count a little bit, but Serral holds, and that is probably the most important hold of this game so far. It means he's gonna have a little bit of time to go into those lurker upgrades, and even though all of the upgrades and whatnot, I've talked about him for quite a while, but all of this is irrelevant, right? Like, the longer the game goes on, the better it's gonna be for Serral in that department, because he will be able to catch up. There are no upgrades past the +3/+3 right here, so Clem is gonna have to play this a little bit differently. Alright, we're gonna have to shift gears. Can't really rely on the timing attacks anymore. Can't really rely on the map control as much because those lurkers are out. So, Fusion Core coming. Additional command centers coming. This is usually, by the way, this is the position in the game where the aggressive Terran players tend to struggle a little bit, where you shift from hyper-aggression into a more defensive approach. That transition is really tough. Because do you just want to... Oh. Sorry, what just happened here? Did they not get picked up? There were a bunch of ghosts playing Tetris. Turns out all of the bumpers were dangerous, man. The bumpers had teeth. Alright, anyways, they all died. That was a bit funky, but... I think he wanted to pick them up and then he may have accidentally dropped them down again, or he just didn't quite get the hot pickup there. Either way, what I'm trying to say, this is usually the point in a game where Terrans, even at the highest level, struggle a little bit. We very frequently see Terran players playing defensively, and then more defensively, right? And how very frequently do we see Terran players play aggressively and then more aggressively? This is now Clem going from playing aggressively into playing defensively, and that transitional moment is tough. Because Zerg is gonna hit a very large amount of lurkers if they want to, right? He can just make like a dozen lurkers all of a sudden. Now, Clem already has got that ghost transition going for quite a while. He already is going into Mass Liberator. I think Clem has successfully survived this. He's also crucially parking a pack of Marines inside of the main base to make sure that a Nidus network, which is a very common style as well, yeah, those would not be able to really get much work done. There it is. Nidus network is coming up. Clem is like a minute ahead of Serral here. You don't really see it reflected so much in the resource counts and the upgrades and all that, but this is momentum still heavily in favor right here of the Terran player. Serral's going for the Serral special. Keep in mind that they nerfed this particular move here. So the Infestor, it doesn't have quite as much vision anymore. It wants to go for a fungal growth, but in general the unburrowing and whatnot can take a while. Serral likes to shark around with those units. Instead, he's trying to create some chaos. So nice abduction right there on the lip. Push over here in the bottom left-hand corner, though, is gonna go slightly in favor of the Terran. Yeah, he will be able to get the kill. Command Center pilot is like, yo, weren't we going to mine golden minerals? Get back over there, sir. Sir. It's free. Anyways, fight happening up north as well. A little bit up north. Metavex, a bit exposed. Nice boost right there by Clem. Keeps them alive. I feel like the one upgrade Clem really needs to get is the Caduceus reactor. It's the Medevac energy upgrade. This is not a game where he can easily make a ton of Medevacs anymore. Serral decides to go down the ramp. Surprises me a little bit. He can blow up the command center, but it'd be really expensive. He gets the job done, but Clem was already lifting up a command center before the planetary died. And this is not a game where Serral is rich. Fungal! Oh, big fungal, big fungal, big fungal. But already the majority, though, of the... he just stood his ground. Clem did not care about that fungal. He's like, nah, the green stuff will disappear, gentlemen. Just hang out here, use your Stimpaks, and... Oh my god, snipe whatever you need to. All of the Vipers just got EMP'd, so no energy on them anymore. Clem doing the reverse of microing. It's kind of funny. Sometimes we have like over micro, I guess. But Clem is looking at these armies and is like, nah, I don't need to micro. I don't need to control my units very much. When you're moving, you're not dealing damage. Sometimes it's better to just hold your ground. But that is a difficult decision to make. That was like the 17th, 4th base, give or take. Serral's gonna try and take it once more. Already though, he scouted the base in the top right. Clem is gonna move on over in that direction as well. Drones decide to get on out of there. 8,000? A little less than 8,000 resources of an advantage right here for Clem. So keep in mind, Clem has been economically in a wonderful position this game. His bank is not that large, but that's mostly because he's been making command centers. So he's got 5 orbitals right now. He's got another command center that's going to turn into a planetary in a second in the bottom left. Vipers are getting sniped. There's another infestor over here, but look at the pre-splits as well from Clem. Clem is not even allowing a big fungal growth. There's the fungal. It's like 5 marines. That is not something Clem will really be all too worried about. I mean, the units maybe, because they all, you know, they died, but he will be happily trading resources against the Zerg army like this. Serral is just not getting a foothold at all, man. And this is a scary game here for Serral. Because game 1, he went for an aggressive push. It didn't work out. Clem was too far ahead after that to really get back into it. Game number 2, however, despite the fact that Clem made mistakes over on this mineral line here, he lost about 30 SCVs with random baneling run-bys. Despite that fact, Clem is still economically and micro and macro-wise ahead of Serral here. And that is scary because 30 SCV kills is essentially the best case scenario. That means, and this is a weird sentence I'm gonna say, okay? That means that Serral is being outplayed. What? What? Now here's an infestor once more moving on. It's trying to see if it can get a fungal. Okay, it will get a fungal. This is... Oh, there you go. A pretty big hit, but there's not enough stuff. GG. Game number 3. We find ourselves on Ghost River. Wonderful play so far by Clem. I wonder what that previous game would have looked like if he did not lose to a baneling run by twice, right? If he didn't lose like a dozen SCVs or so to a baneling run by twice. Serral is not somebody who usually relies on any luck. He will be the one outpacing the opponent, right? With clinical precision, he will sometimes execute a roll-by like that, and it will work out brilliantly, because up until that point, he was already ahead because he was playing really cleanly. In that previous game, he was by no means ahead when the baneling roll-bys came in. It wasn't a horrible spot, but it wasn't the Serral spot that we normally expect him to be in, so he's gonna have to tighten things up a little bit. 15 hatchery opener by Serral. Making sure that he's not going to be rushed by a bunch of Reapers and any early game aggression here from Clem. He already went, I believe, for a 15 hatch as well in game number 1 too, so that's interesting. Most of the pro gamers right now like to go for a 16 hatch. Main deficit, I guess, the main disadvantage of going for a 15 hatch is that the second Overlord is not out early on, so you can't really scout with it so well. But if it is cheese, well, you will have just simply more units available a little bit earlier on. This is about a 12-second advantage on the queens. Luckily, though, for Serral, none of that is relevant, as it's Clem just playing, yeah, a normal build. SCV Scout, ahead of the Reaper, Command Center on the low ground. This is a very safe way to open up. So Clem not cutting any corners, despite his 2-0 advantage. He is not gonna really take any risks. Important to note, by the way, that Clem about a year ago or so was still struggling quite a bit in offline events. Obviously, he's done very well for himself at offline tournaments ever since. But generally speaking, Clem, I think in most people's minds, he's still like, yeah, the newer kid on the block, right? Like the guy who's really good at the game, especially in online events. But sometimes in offline, he can struggle a little bit. I feel like that's not really the case anymore. Clem playing this tournament, it was clear that he was very comfortable playing on a stage, playing in front of a crowd, playing, you know, from a different computer. So I really feel like that is something Clem has managed to overcome. But I think in a lot of people's minds, that is still... it's still the case, right? Like, he's a bit more emotional than, for example, a Serral. If you see Serral playing an offline event, he really never seems to be too bothered. So a stone cold killer, I guess, is an easy way to describe him. But with this particular series, again, I didn't really watch any of the games closely, but there were multiple camera shots of Serral specifically, like, buffing up his cheeks and looking very tilted. So... more emotion than we usually see from Serral. I can remember one time that Serral actually seemed emotional in the sense that he was like teary-eyed and stuff, and that's after he won the World Cup. That was back in, I think it was 2018. Was it 2018? For some reason, it doesn't seem like 6 years ago to me. Was it 2018? I think it was. Ooh, nicely done right there with the Reaper. Roach Warren coming up in the meantime as well. And this is once again a very fast Roach Warren. So one thing Clem has done really well so far is deny the third base. This is a map, Ghost River, where there is only one third base option. Serral does not have another location where he can take the third. So Clem at this point, by denying it, also is kind of scaring himself a little bit. It's one of those weird situations, the Reaper's dead by the way, it's one of those weird situations where like, haha! What?
Good job
Brian!
at the central event.
Brian!
Have a nice...
Brian! I forgot muting Brian! Professional commentator alert! For those of you watching on YouTube, I have been sneakily casting games while also live streaming at the same time. Don't tell anybody. But sometimes I forget to mute my text-to-speech bot. And his name is Brian. So that happened a few occasions. I saw something in the comment section a few days ago. I'm actually gonna pause this for just a sec. I saw somebody in the comment section of a video. They mentioned like a timestamp, like 14 minutes and 37 seconds, like 14:37. Somebody said in the comments, 14:37. I hear somebody say, hello, is there anybody out there? And I look back at the VOD. So I usually cast with my game audio way down. I, usually have my recording audio much higher than my own headphone audio. So I didn't actually notice it at the time. But if you go back to that video, I can literally hear Brian going in the background. Hello, is there anybody out there? I had no idea. Okay, sorry. Back to the game. Professional. You should. If you're watching this on YouTube, you should come and hang out on Twitch as well. I stream over at twitch.tv/LowkoTV. There's a link down below. I stream pretty much every single day. Yeah. In case you're unfamiliar, I stream like, I don't know, 40 hours a week or something. I've been streaming a lot of hours for many, many years. I never really bring this up on YouTube, but Serral going for an aggressive push once more. It's a lair with roach speed and then a 2-base roach attack. Now this is a build that we used to see back in the day. And we don't really see it anymore much these days. And I think the reason is pretty straightforward. This is considered, I mean, do I want to be nice about it? This is considered a pretty bad build. Problem is, right? This is a 2-base attack for Serral. And he's going up against a 3-base Terran. So even when you kill all of these SCVs, Clem is still gonna be fine. Mules make up for a lot of that difference. Now Brenda and Karen are also marching over in this direction. This is giving me flashbacks to game number 1. SCVs are pushed as well to try and tank some of the damage. Great decision here from Clem. Supply-wise, at this point, game is really good, of course, for Serral. The problem is StarCraft 2 is not a game about supply, it's a game about actual units. And Clem is going to be able to very quickly make a ton of troops if the dust settles. And that's exactly what Serral's trying to prevent. Medevacs come cruising in. Siege tank right now on the ramp. This is what ultimately we were buying a lot of time for. Third CC, by the way, in the meantime, has landed on the low ground. The queens finally have made their way here, but it looks like, oh my god. Well, she immediately got blown to pieces. Nice splits right here by Serral, trying to negate a lot of that splash damage, but ultimately this is all very rough. This reminds me a lot of the Crimson Court game number 1 of this series, except this time around, I don't think this was the original plan for Serral. In game number 1, Serral didn't really get messed with, and he decided to go for a roach push. This is game number 3. Serral has decided to go for a big attack because he was forced to go for a big attack. His third base was denied for such a long time. He could have done a different strategy, of course, but his third base was denied for such a long time that I think Serral kind of said, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and do a push and see how it goes. Now, while all of that was being lost on the other side of the map, he has been droning a ton. So we're still talking 53 workers right now for Serral versus 52 from Clem. The larva mechanic there making life a little bit easier for Serral, but I think Clem is gonna... he's gonna feel pretty confident here. In a very strange way. What I'm getting at is that normally the longer a game goes on, the more I favor Serral. But judging off of that previous game, this may be one of those scenarios where Clem is actually thinking, oh god, yeah, I survived the early game, Let's play a macro match. This kind of feels like the opposite of what we normally see whenever Serral is playing. This kind of feels like a game where Serral is trying to get the game over with quick. He's trying to go for a strategy that can maybe catch the opponent off guard, whereas his opponent, in this case Clem, is the one favored in a longer match. Let's see. Well, once more, we have an upgrade advantage right here for Clem. +1/+1 for the Terran, significantly ahead of that of the Zerg. Very quick, well, at least comparatively quick to the game. Infestation pit right here for Serral, who will once again try to go into a quick hive. He's gonna make 2 infestors first. I feel like it's desperation infestors, man. It's just like what we saw in the first game. This is what Dark used to do in a lot of his games whenever he was like a little bit behind. He would go for 2 infestors before hive. And it delays the hive a little bit, but you can get the power of a fungal growth. I feel like so far we haven't really seen Serral get any real value out of the fungal. Oh, that's an Evo chamber. The cute little play right there by Serral. So he wanted to save the drone, and he figured the easiest way to save the drone is not to restart the hatch, because he might have to double cancel, but instead to restart a Evo chamber in that same little square. +2, immediately fired up. +1 for the siege tanks, also fired up. Clem already set up really nicely here, though. 4th command center coming. No triple CC all-ins or any of that sort of shenanigans. At the ESL Master Spring, the only games Serral lost were against Oliveira. And in 2 of those games that he lost, well, in both of the games that he lost, it was against a Terran who made only 3 command centers and then 8 barracks on those 3 command centers, and he just made a stupid amount of units. That is not what Clem is doing here. So these are barracks 6, 7, and 8 coming up right now, but it's after the 4th CC. So this is just straight up macro here from Clem. Not feeling the need to play tricksy. There's the Hydra then, though, and there is the Hive. And this always worries me a little bit whenever we see Terran players going up against Hive Tech, because Lurkers can just do so much damage. But you know what else can deal damage? Man with Gun! Man with Gun go... Oh my god, this is a lot of value here from Clem. He'll be happily trading out a bunch of those Marines. Honestly, anytime you trade Marines, right? A Marine is just minerals. Anytime you trade out a unit that only kills minerals against something that also kills gas, life's pretty good. Gets the queens here. That's gonna slow down the momentum a little bit more for Serral. He only got 1 in the end. Push in the middle of the map in the meantime too. A little bit of stutter stepping and multiple locations, because why not, right? Okay, well at least he managed to get 4 Marines. But again, that's a couple hundred minerals. Nothing all too crazy. Look at the APM. Clem at 450 something average actions per minute. That is very fast. Cheeky little Zergling is gonna scout the timing of the 4th command center. Is there, though? Excuse me, is there anything that Serral can do about this? He needs to. Now, because Clem has been so aggressive, he once again has a medevac full of units, maybe even 2 on the other side of the map. Is Clem finally gonna get pushed back for once? Reinforcing Terran units are gonna be needed, but at the same time, Clem is pushing as well. So he's not just being aggressive, he's forcing some of those Roaches and Ravages to return back home. Planetary Fortress a little over halfway done right now. New siege tanks have come out. And once more, my god, Clem just does not allow any sort of foothold here for Serral at all. Serral overstays his welcome. He loses everything because he's busy microing at home, and he instantly tabs out. Post-Youth is going to be our 4th map in this best of 9 series. It is important to note that it is a best of 9. Generally speaking, for the longest time in StarCraft 2, we've had best of 7 grand finals and best of 5, well, semifinals. For the EWC, we had a best of 9 grand finals and then best of 7 semis as well. So pretty exciting to see. Considering we now have a 9 map pool since... when did this change? Like end of last year? I actually think it's kind of nice. I think a best of 9 series is... it's always nice to have, right? It gives a little bit more wiggle room, and ultimately if the goal is to get the... if you want the best player... if you want the best player to win the tournaments, I guess it makes sense to have longer games so they can prove themselves. At least the RNG, right, might be reduced a little bit. Then again, it is also then immediately the assumption that all of the maps are balanced. And there are certainly some maps in the current map pool that are a little bit better for, well, especially Terran. I'm a little surprised we haven't seen Dynasty yet. Maybe Clem is just busy being a gentleman here, but Dynasty is an incredible map for Terran. Although Serral did mention that he's got like a special build. So, yeah, he's got a special build against Terrans on that map. I'm not sure if we've seen it, but maybe Clem is just being a gentleman. I actually learned a lot, right? So I was on the broadcast on the EWC Central stream together with Virtual Football, EAFC, and then also Call of Duty. And one thing I learned is that apparently even though the Call of Duty guys are all incredibly BM towards each other, right? Like they're trash talking the opponents and making all kinds of hand gestures and stuff, right? Like they're doing little victory dances and stuff. They also have a lot of what they call them GAs. So I didn't even know that this was a thing, but apparently, as far as gentleman agreements go, a lot of like guns in Call of Duty, in competitive Call of Duty, are not played. Apparently not a single sniper is currently played at all because all of them are overpowered. I found that very interesting. Like, we've never had that in StarCraft 2, right? Where a player is like, you know what? Brute Lord Infester, it's way too good. I'm such a gentleman that I am not gonna play. No, that's never happened in StarCraft 2. But apparently there are loads and loads of things. This was specifically brought up when one of the Call of Duty teams started. So they fell behind in a match and they started using a movement pattern called snaking, where they constantly go prone and they try to make it really difficult. Apparently it's one of the most annoying things to play against. And despite them breaking the gentleman's agreement, they still lost the round anyways, which is very embarrassing. But anyways, I was thinking about that. We definitely, like, we have a lot of agreements in StarCraft 2, as in, like, when I lose the game, I'm not gonna fly my command center to the corner and force you to make a Void Ray, right? We have a lot of agreements like that, I suppose. But in general, there has never been anything like that where something is so broken that the players themselves are like, you know what? We're not gonna do that. So what I'm saying is, long story short, maybe Clem is being a bit of a gentleman here, not picking Dynasty. Because, oh my god, it's once again a super quick Roach Warren here for Serral. Maybe he's purposefully not picking the best map for Terran versus Zerg. Brenda, by the way, tasked with defending this little notch. She's gonna move over a little bit. Yeah, it's quite difficult here for Clem to actually scout what's going on. He wants to have vision of the main base. Oh, gets the tumor. That's actually quite sweet. That's actually quite a blunder right there from Serral. But I feel like that was a completely avoidable mistake. That was the move that you make when you assume the opponent isn't looking at their Reaper, but it's pretty clear that Clem is playing this out of his mind fast. He was looking at that Reaper the moment the creep tumor came within vision, and he immediately tasked it down. Nicely done. Okay, so it's a quick Roach Warren, but it's actually not an aggressive Roach Warren. I was a little worried that once more Serral was going to go for a big attack. Nice Evo Chamber block here, making it difficult for those Hellions to run in. But this was like a 3.5, I think 320 or so Roach Warren timing, which can be used aggressively, but this is really just Serral making it so that he does not have the... like, he's basically skipping Metabolic Boost. So on this map, you only really need to protect this angle right over here and then the one right over here. And roaches positioned in these locations can very easily defend all those different spots. Obviously, there could be a medevac drop, but in general, you don't need any links on this map. So Serral apparently saving himself 100 gas and is now using that to go into a lair together with the Evo Chambers here instead. And despite the fact that this is a fast Roach Warren, he hasn't actually made a single Roach yet. They're coming now, but this has been an exceptionally greedy opener here from Serral. This is actually very greedy. 62 workers, 5 minutes into the game. Essentially full 3-base saturation with now a 4th base coming up. Double upgrades researching, Roach speed researching. He did not go for Link speed yet. I mean, this is about as greedy an early game you can ever have. And obviously he's cut a lot of corners. Like, he doesn't know what's going on the other side of the map. Serral's been scouting a little bit, but he hasn't seen that much. This could have backfired, but it looks like Serral has managed to get away with murder here for now. Okay. Council on the fourth hatch, just like what we saw earlier on one of the previous maps. The Knight fourth bases over and over and over again do make the game quite tricky. That was on Golden Aura, where Clem managed to get the snipe on the opponent's fourth base, like, I don't know, twice initially and then like 4 times more throughout the remainder of that game. Obviously, it doesn't matter so much anymore a bit later, but it certainly did take the wind out of the sails of Serral, who now once more has to deal with those cheeky little Hellions. They're sacrificial right now. But before going out, they get 6 kills. Okay. Second factory in the meantime at home right now here for Clem. Armory coming up as well. He is just happily macroing wherever he needs to. Do we have a 4th command center? When do we go for the 4th command center? Okay, we expect it to start up here momentarily. I think that's what this SCV is ready to do. We need 400 minerals. This SCV is already waiting. We're fighting on the other side of the map, though. There it is. He managed to get it done. And look at how in sync these guys are, though. Despite the greed, Clem is only merely seconds behind. Okay, so a flying start right here for Serral. Is there anything that you can really do off of this right now? Because this is not an easy position to be pushing into. Serral's actually not really trying to do an aggressive timing attack. Instead, he is essentially saying, yo, let's play... You want to play macro games? Let's play the big macro games. I'm not gonna bother with Ling Bane run-bys. This is like the StarCraft 2 equivalent of like 10 minutes no rush. You know, if this was Command & Conquer, that's what these guys are doing. Normally, Serral is the favorite player going into the late game. Dude, Clem is fast, man. Ay, 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 ay. Sorry, can I just go back and do that off of Clem's vision? Was he actually looking at those medeffects? So this is Clem's point of view. I won't be on this camera the entire time because it's going to be a little bit confusing. Okay, he gets a couple of the Marines fungled over here. You can see the medeffects moving on the left side of the map. I wonder if he was looking at the medeffects when they boosted into the main? I think he must have been looking, yeah. He was very fast, though, with turning around against those queens. No, he was not. Boom. Those are the type of plays, though, where you have to anticipate it, right? So, like, yes, you double-click the hotkey to go back to this specific location on the map, but at the same time, you already have to move your mouse cursor towards the left side to instantly retreat in case you need it. Because if it would have been any moment later than that, one of those medeffects would have gone down and the game becomes a little bit trickier to play. Ultralisk Cavern coming up for Serral. Interesting. So Serral going Ultra Cavern? After such a quick rush, he's actually going to continue droning here for a little bit longer. I don't know if I love the idea of going Ultras, to be honest. But it's certainly unexpected. This is effectively like a 9-minute Ultralisk rush, right? Like 8.5, 9-ish minutes into the game is when Ultralisk can already be built. Chitinous Plating coming up. I think this is Serral saying, yo, I have been so greedy that even Ultras can win me the game. Because usually Ultras are only really a unit made whenever you want to like drive home a win. Whenever you're so far ahead that the opponent can't really deal with your army regardless. He's basically hoping that he's going to get to the other side of the map before we really see any reliable late game counters. Because Ghosts are amazing, Liberators are amazing, Siege Tanks aren't bad. Serral wants to, by the way, trade out a bunch of those cheaper, more supply heavy units. What is the Dropper Lords for, though? What are we going to do with these guys? We have 5 of them. Adrenal Glands, almost done. Pneumatized Carapace, that is the Overlord, well, speed ability, is going to be finishing up here as well momentarily. Okay, +2/+2, finishing right now. Clem is essentially maxed out. There's a new command center over here building. That one will be denied immediately. Okay, so he's actually donating these roaches. It looks really bad. And I don't really know if I fully agree with that play, but he's opening up supply to make more Lings and a couple of Ultras as well. Here's those 5 Dropper Lords from Serral. He's heading on over towards the main base of the Terran.
Ghost reporting.
Can we,
I'm in deep.
can we go? Okay, he's not going, but now he does spot it though. Serral's gonna try and make the play and has to retreat. He backs out of it for now. There is a Viking nearby though. I don't know if Clem actually, I don't think he saw it. Did Clem make a mistake? He didn't see the tiny little red dot on the minimap for like the 10th of a second it was available? Washed up? Confirmed? Can't believe it. Now, there's a lot of aggression all over the place, obviously. So even though it was within vision range, he is still going to be in a little bit of trouble against this. I say that, though. I love the positioning right there on the missile turret. Forcing those Lings and those, well, leftover Zerg units to take the long way around. In the meantime, we have a big push over here. This is when those Ultras finally get revealed. Or maybe it's only a singular Ultra. He does kill a lot of SCVs. Okay. So I think this attack in the end is still worth it. But that was still quite costly. 22 SCVs, again, 11 minutes into the game. Yeah. I don't think I truly love it. Because now, Clem is going to be able to properly start all of his Ghost production. He's going to be able to go into the second starport if he wants to. He can go into the libs. And at some point, those Ultras just don't work very well. Honestly, I'm not sure what you do make, though, in the late game of ZVT right now. Against the very best Terrans in the world, and Clem is playing out of his mind good here. Against the very best Terrans in the world, I'm not exactly sure what the best course of action for Zerg would be. Like, yes, we see a lot of Lurker play, but is that really the best move? Because I feel like there's units in the game, right? Like, for example, the Lurker, that are extremely good, especially when players aren't really used to them. There's a lot of strategies in the game where it works better the less frequently strategies are played. So, since Terrans have been playing against essentially exclusively Lurker compositions for like a year, maybe even 2 years now, I don't think it's... Yeah, I think Terrans may have just gotten a little bit too good at playing against that sort of thing, and I'm not exactly sure what the next play would be. So, you do obviously have Brute Lords as well. Brute Lords are really quite nice, especially when Terran is really siege tank heavy. But Ghosts are not bad against that unit at all. Well, there's double Spire coming up. By the way, how many factories are we on? I don't see any. Oh, there's this. Okay, this is factory number 3. Factory number 3. We're going into +2. There's a second armory building. This reminds me a little bit of the old school style of playing Terran late game. These days, usually it's very Liberator focused. Liberator Ghost, obviously, very strong with more biological units. But before the patch that nerfed the Baneling, when was this? Like October or so of last year, I think? Something like that. Maybe December. I don't know. Anyways, end of last year, we used to see a lot of Ghost Mech. Ghost Mech was a very popular unit composition where you make Ghosts and then you make Mech. It's a little bit more delicate than that. But usually you start off with Marines and Marauders, then you transition towards Ghosts, and then as the Marines and Marauders die, you transition towards more mechanical units. Judging here by the upgrades, that may very well be what we have going here. But we're not quite there yet. Maybe it's just an option here for the Terran. So this is the moment though where, yeah, no, Lingbane Ultra is not gonna cut it. Look at this. Look at the resources lost actually. That is pretty much a 2-to-1 ratio in favor of Terran. That's extremely nice. Oh, yeah, okay. So, obviously the advantage here that Serral has with this unit composition is that it's extremely mobile. So the idea is that, yes, you trade costs inefficiently, but then at the same time, you can gobble up the entire map. So one of the bases... and this is not something Clem currently knows about, one of the bases here has been stolen by the Zerg. And that is a bit of a risky spot. Okay, Sensor Tower finishes in the main base. That is one of the worst moments here for Clem. He's like, wait a second, why are there like a gajillion little exclamation marks? That base was already amazing. We have a command center building on the high ground in the middle of the map. He's going to be overlooking the golden minerals here in a moment, although by the time it finishes, I'm afraid the golden base will be running out. Here's the Nidus network again. Serral, by the way, going double Spire, double upgrades. I wonder if maybe one of them should be morphing into a greater Spire instead. Because against mech, usually that's the type of army that works a little bit better. We're still quite marine heavy though. Well, I said that 18 marines, 5 marauders, it's not a ton. Personal cloaking for the ghosts coming up. Serral taking more bases in the opposite end of the map too. So this is, by the way, the type of game that Serral was in. Like, this is what he wanted to play, right? He invited Terran to play a similar game, and Clem said, okay, yeah, fine, go ahead. You play the big macro game, I'll face you straight up. So, considering this is the game that Serral wanted, is he in a really good position? I think he's in a good position here, but I wouldn't necessarily call this an unwinnable space right here for Clem right now. He hasn't really taken any of the big fights. Now, I love the super fast splits that we see from Clem every single time. That fungal growth was good, but he's gonna have to go underground once more and continue sharking around. Minimal losses right there for Clem. Honestly, if we keep trading like this, with, well, Zerg losing like nearly twice as many resources as the Terran, stealing one base from the Terran is irrelevant. Which is really funny, because normally you really want to make sure that Zerg does not steal one of your expansions. There's a lot of bases on this map. Post-youth is massive, a lot of expansions. I think it would actually be okay if Serral steals one of the bases and mines it out. Obviously, he's going to try and deny it, though. A lot of these bases are very exposed. Really no reason to give the Zerg whatever they want. Okay. I always like this play, by the way, from Serral. He's the only one at this level that really does this, where he has a little Nidus worm next to the outer bases. Yeah, he has one over here, too. So the drones that are, you know, the thieves, right? The stealing drones, they maneuver very quickly from one of the stealing bases to the other. There's probably a better term, the stealing bases. Anyways, he's trying to take one of the bases from the Terran, and the Nidus worm is connecting it, so very quickly allowing himself to go around the map. I've seen a couple players starting to copy it as well, but Serral consistently does it. All right, here we go. Serral's gonna whip out 10 Brute Lords. An expensive tech transition, but one that can certainly work out really well. Keep in mind that Brute Lords in the most recent patches did get a little bit of like a speed buff. They still feel like one of the slowest units in the game, but they're certainly a bit quicker than they once used to be. I think the main problem here for Serral is that the units that, oh my god, the ghosts that were made to counter the Ultras, they're amazing as well against Brute Lords. It's mostly just that they have a hard time getting the engagement going. If Serral can get a fungal growth off on some of those ghosts and then, you know, close the distance or something, then it's very manageable, I think. But it almost feels like in a perfect scenario, it's gonna require the Terran player here to make a mistake, so Zerg can capitalize on it. And Clem is very risk-averse so far in this series. Not really making any mistakes. Yeah, the key to playing good StarCraft is to not make mistakes. Okay. Very nice. Starts off this fight, and he obviously now knows he's playing against Brutes. He immediately fires up the +1 air attacks, which is nice. But he doesn't have the supply count right now to really do anything with it, which is a funny problem to have. He's only got 1 starport. We're talking 4 factories here. I wonder if maybe Clem should make 1 more of each. 13 infestors. We're actually just going straight up Brute Lord Infestor here. Okay. Look at the banks, though, at this point in time. If we look at the current army value, yeah, it's pretty apparent that both players can cover their armies with minerals, but they cannot quite do the same thing gas-wise. So at this point, there is just so much gas caught up in these unit compositions. And these fights are amazing, though, for Terran. He's barely losing anything there, like a couple ghosts, sure. But I feel like every time a Ghost dies, we also see like 3 Spellcasters or a Brute Lord going down. Finally, apparently a couple of units have been tasked with shutting down that expansion once and for all, as a planetary fortress is looking to be built in that location. And Clem is... Clem is playing a masterclass of passive Terran right now. I feel like once upon a time we could say like, hey, Maru is the best late game player for Terran. And I don't think a whole lot of people would dispute it, but Clem is showing us in this series so far that not only can he be aggressive, not only can he be timing attack focused, he's also extremely good at this much slower type of game. He is controlling the map despite not having map control. Does that make any sense? Like, he is making it extremely hard for the Zerg to really get anything done. He sacks just the right amount of units. Now he's gonna use some of that, supply he has available to go into a bunch of Thors. One of the most uncommon units in this matchup. Very good specifically against Brute Lords, because they outrange them. At least when they are in their high impact mode, but I'm sure Clem will be switching their modes. There's the additional starports, by the way, that I was asking for in the Fusion Core, also coming up. I think having it for the ranged upgrade for Liberators is going to be really good already. So, in my mind, right, this is a unit composition from the Zerg that has been maxed out for the better part of 10 minutes. Like, the units don't really get any better. Whereas Clem, at 22 minutes into the game, is still improving his unit composition. Brute Lords trying to see if they can get some damage done over here. Okay, good fungal, but yeah. Planetary Fortress goes down. Fair enough. It is a little expensive. Serral actually, even though he's got a massive bank, I'm a little afraid for the amount of gas that he's got. The ratios just do not line up. Zergling run by over here in the far bottom right. Zerglings alone, though, are not going to cut it. Every Nidus Worm, by the way, also costs gas. Not a ton, 75, but still a little bit of gas to put down the worm. Serral's spending like he's never gonna run out, but I'm not 100% convinced about that. Okay. So, yeah, this is the high impact mode on the outer Thors, these two. These other two will have to switch over. He might be doing it on purpose, actually, only using about half of them in high impact. They deal splash damage in the other mode. No, okay, he switched all of them over just now. I like the usage of the Brute Lords, though, here from Serral. EMPs making it hard for those infestors to really get close. There are still some with enough energy for fungals, and we do see some nice fungals coming up right now. Okay, Zergling Flood comes forward. Siege tanks and Thors try to get saved right here by the Medivacs. What? 17,000 minerals? Okay, sorry, I can stare. What? That is such a massive advantage. Unheard of cost efficiency right here from Clem. Actually insane. Normally there's like, it's like maybe like a 20% difference, right? In a crazy game, maybe like a 40, 50% advantage. Clem is covering his opponent almost twice. Beautiful unit control here from Clem, who is just playing out of his mind fast. Look at the APM. He's playing faster than the Zerg, and keep in mind, Zerg has a ton of rapid fire, meaning that their APM is always a bit inflated. Not that Terrans don't play without, you know, any rapid fire, but it is still... it's still noticeable how incredibly well Clem is playing here. He's just on top of everything, man. Serral trying to make a transition towards what seems to be lurkers or something. He doesn't even have a lurker den. Never mind, he doesn't have a lurker den. Oh, Serral's actually is kind of dying here. So remember those bases that he stole? Clem has taken all of them back. Once upon a time, this was a base that the drones were mining from. Clem has taken all of those back. Main problem right now for Clem is that he doesn't have a lot of gas. Ghosts are by no means a cheap gas unit. But, you know, if push comes to shove, he can always go back into a bunch of, like, marine production. And I feel like marines are quite good. Understatement of the day. If there were still a lot of Brute Lords flying around, you could also go into Hellbats. Hellbats are also fantastic. We have Ultras coming up. I honestly think Ultras are one of the worst unit choices right here for Serral. Ultras die to literally every single Terran unit out in the field right now, except for Medivacs, because they can't attack. Even Medivacs kind of kill. Even the Medivacs kind of kill Ultras. Ultras don't do anything here. Oh, we're gonna make a circle? Yeah, we're gonna run into it? I mean, Microbial Shrouds to try and deal with the libs. I mean, it's an ambitious play, but it's never gonna work. It looks strange to me to see a 4 on the scoreboard. Match point for Clem. Is it possible for Serral to win 5 games in a row? Serral has tried playing aggressively. Then he tried playing a normal macro game. Then he tried playing an exceptionally greedy game just now on post-youth. And he was allowed to play that greedily. Clem has shown us that he is comfortable in every situation of Terran versus Zerg. Not only is he comfortable, he's heavily outplaying Serral. The cost efficiency there in that previous game was nuts. What do you do as Serral here? Keep in mind that we also still have not seen Dynasty. I just want to... Dynasty Ellie. What is the current win-loss ratio on that map? It's heavily in favor of Terran versus Zerg. Maybe it's narrow. Okay, yeah, it's only at a 65% win rate for Terran right now. There was a time a few months ago where it had an 80% win rate at the professional level in Terran versus Zerg. Apparently Zergs have managed to bring it back a little bit, so maybe it's not that amazing, but I mean, it's still relatively great compared to an Oceanborn. So let's see what we can do. It's a best of 9, so every map will come up at some point, assuming we need it. And that is something that's got to be worrying Serral a little bit as well. Oceanborn is very standard. This map has got to be close to 50% win rate for both sides. I almost feel like Clem is being a very merciful man by not bringing out the best maps yet. We also haven't yet seen Amphion. Amphion also a nice map overall for Terran, if I'm not mistaken. What other map have we not seen? I can look up Amphion. I feel like Amphion is not as heavily in favor of Terran. Yeah, no, it's actually narrow. It's actually evened up a lot. Interesting. I feel like initially those maps were a little bit better for Terran, but maybe the other players have figured out what's better on those maps as well. I know, for example, quite a few of the Zergs do enjoy playing on, like, Ghost River, but Serral mentioned he doesn't really like it so much. Anyways, Clem is buzzing. He is doing extremely well. The nerfs are not really getting to him yet. I've honestly not, other than the Bailing roll-bys on Golden Aura, I have not seen him really make any mistakes. Do any mistakes come to mind? Like anything critical? Like anything where you're like, ah, all right, that is sloppy. I feel like we haven't seen any real sloppy mistakes here from Clem. Whereas from Serral, we have seen multiples. Going into this tournament, by the way, I think Clem's total earnings were at like less than first place prize for this particular event. So if you look at all of the tournament earnings going into this particular event, first place prize for this event is bigger than all of that combined. So, you know your family is going to be watching. You know that this is, obviously it's not just a match for money. It is also a match for the title of World Champion, right? And nobody's going to be able to ever take that away from you. I can imagine this is a game where you can very quickly start making mistakes. If you start getting the shakes right now, right? Either, I don't know, you've had too much caffeine. Hey, look, that's a little bit of a mistake. Too much caffeine, too much adrenaline. Stress management is incredibly hard to do because you can't really practice for it so much, right? The only way in which you can practice real proper tournament settings is by playing real proper tournaments. And some players have naturally always gravitated to that type of style. Like Serral is one of them. I feel like Serral is always somebody who's just been very cold at tournaments. Not really too worried about, you know, any of the stuff you can't control. But Clem certainly is somebody who used to play significantly worse at offline events. But it feels to me like he has managed to get the better hand of all of that. Like he's managed to get all of that under control. Lair coming up here for Serral. We're playing a normal game once more. Clem has 5 chances here to win with a cheese. Like, picture that for a second. He could literally do a 7 proxy barracks rush 5 games in a row, and I would say there's a chance that at least one time it would work. I'm not exactly sure why he is just playing macro, but he must have told himself going into this game, into this series, look, there is no reason for me to play anything wild. Just play what you've practiced, just do what you are. I think everybody's experienced that at some point if you've ever played any tournament, any competition at all. I find usually the plants that I've been practicing, the things I've been trying to get better at, usually they go out of the window real quick. Clem apparently does not have that issue. I don't think I would be able to withstand the temptation right now to do a bunch of proxies. just build a bunch of stuff on the other side of the map, trying to get a cheap win. But no. This is not the way. Alright. Queens are gonna get bullied here a little bit, but nice defense so far by Serral. He really wants to get the low HP queen, but she will live for now. Gets the creep tumor. Not bad. Stimpback is going to finish up momentarily. He's got a lot of potential here for unit production now, and he could go for a push if he wants to, and, well, we have 2 Medivacs just about to pop. What's curious to note, by the way, in a lot of the online cups that I've casted over the last month or two, ever since Clem first went into Korea, right? So he's been practicing in Korea for a little while. Remember, like, every single game of TVZ I casted, he was playing a strategy that reminded me of Björn. He was doing a lot of hyper-aggressive build orders. He was doing a lot of 2-base shenanigans, a lot of proxies in general. I've got a feeling that that was just for the online cups. It was just for experimentation. He was just trying to mess around. Because he is not playing any of that in a series where it actually matters. So let's see what we can do here. It's going in once again. Triple CC. Hellion Banshee opener into good old Bio Terran. +1/+1 is going to finish up a little bit ahead of the Zerg. Serral's macroing up. He's trying to see if he can keep these bases alive. Okay, there are enough Medivacs to lift up the majority. Yep, so he will be able to get on out of there. So this is usually the type of game where I favor Serral. As a matter of fact, I've seen some fantastic Zerg versus Terran from Serral at this particular tournament. Here's a push again at the bottom. If he can get the kill on the base, that would be massive, and Clem realizes it right now. This could be a $400,000 hatchery. Like, at some point, I can imagine you start buzzing a little bit too much, right? If you start talking about it a little too much, you're like, oh my god, man, if I get the hatchery, the game is pretty... Okay, it's not pretty much yours, but it certainly starts heading in that direction. Just staying with your thoughts right there, right? And just making sure you are 100% confident in everything you're doing. It is the right play. But I can imagine that you can also very easily get your head out of the game. It's critical I mean, Serral will be more than happy to play more games. It's critical you don't start giving your opponent any space at all. Microing multiple areas of the map at once. APM still climbing for both players. Creep spread is contained really wonderfully. That is one key takeaway. In every single game we've seen so far, Serral has never really had full map control as far as the creep goes. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of creep over here, but that's like one scan, and then suddenly we're on top of the hatchery again. The only reason Serral can fight here at all is because of those, like, banelings, right, on creep. There's the scan going down. There's the creep tumors going down. We have another medevac drop over there. Planetary Fortress in the meantime at the 12 o'clock position. 5th Command Center starts up immediately. 2-2 is just about to finish. Clem is not skipping a beat. Serral finally, though, manages to overwhelm a lot of these units. Has to take some of that fight off creep, but that was a super important save. If that, like, the hatchery is gone, obviously, at this point, right? But if he would have just given up on this position at all, like, the game would have been pretty much unwinnable for him. Because there's no other location for him to expand to right now. I mean, I guess this is an option, but that is ages away. Alright. We are at Hive Tech. Adrenal Glands is done here for Serral. He's gonna go into a Viper. We'll probably see a Lurker Den here before too long, but Lurker Den is still a while away. Ghost Academy, perfect time. +3/+3 should start up right about right now. He's busy zooming around the map. He's been spending his money quite aggressively. I'm assuming we're going to see at least +3 attack startup. Those are the mistakes, though, that can cost you the game. Serral not forgetting any upgrades. Ultimately, by the way, just going Hydraling Bane. So Hydraling Bane is actually quite rough. I think Hydraling Bane is not that great of a unit composition for offense. Like, it's great for defense, but very rarely do we see Zerg players just straight up winning Hydraling Bane. Like, normally whenever that happens, it's a mid-game timing attack, but this game is already heading the distance right now. Clem once again moving in, using the advantage of the creep. Massive Widowmine hit. Snipes the hatch, picks up with whatever he's got, splits off one of the medevacs, although it did already deal some splash damage right there to one of the low HP ones. 3-3, by the way, did begin. A little bit later than optimal, but Clem was in the meantime spending his gas on some additional medevacs. He's got up to 9. It's probably one more than he was planning on, but I think we can forgive that. Especially since he's been dealing so much damage on the other side of the map. And now that we are nearly 12 minutes into the game, this is the moment where the main base for the Zerg will start running out. These mineral fields are looking mighty skinny. Natural expansion is not going to be too far behind either. You can see Serral will now begin transferring the drones to those outer expansions. He needs to start mining them ASAP. With him constantly losing those outer bases, he will go down in economy very rapidly. In the meantime, Clem is completely unhindered on the other side of the map. Once again, fighting in multiple areas at once. You can see, by the way, Serral is starting to feel the heat as well. His APM has gone up compared to the previous matches. But look at this. This is exactly what I was trying to highlight. Clem now finds himself with a very substantial income advantage. That's about a 20 Marine income advantage a minute. Now, obviously, the mules cannot be mining the entire minute long. You can't keep that sort of income level up. But it's obvious that Serral is starting to fall behind as far as the economy goes, in a game where he is running the inefficient army composition. He's carved a massive path, though, straight through the center of the map. Okay, we do have the Overseers coming close by to try and help snipe those Widow memes. The Widow Mines, though, still around. Okay, abductions on medevacs? Sure. But that is not why the Vipers were originally here. Lurker Den in the meantime. Having a grand old time in the main base, but it's ages until those upgrades are actually done. And this is where Terran will hit another nice little power spike. +3/+3. Going to finish up. We cannot go any higher than that. Command centers are building. This base has been acquired a little while ago already as well. Obviously, Clem is running into the same issue. But we already saw that in the late game, Clem looks pretty much unbeatable. So, if that's the case, and Serral has to run another late game Zerg army composition, what in the world is he gonna change this time around? I don't think Ultras were it. I don't think the Brute Lords were it. I guess Lurkers are his best chance, but I haven't really seen the Lurkers be particularly efficient in this series either. Although the one time we did see them, they didn't really have their proper late game upgrades yet. And that's one of the upgrades he immediately fires up. Seismic Spines. Additional range on Lurkers is absolutely critical, but we're still several minutes away from those upgrades actually being done. Okay. There's an Infestor once again, sharking around the map. The Ghosts are all up north. Now, this is actually one of the few unit compositions where you don't really want to have a lot of Ghosts. That Infestor just got murdered. Didn't get anything done. And this is, again, trading Infestors and units that don't really cost a lot of gas for units that do cost quite a bit of gas. Viper spawned here just now, instantly gets denied. Great targeting right there by Clem, who was targeting the hatchery. He's like, yo, give me that. Perfect, thank you. Back to the hatchery we go. Okay. Clem has got his eyes set on this base right over here. Only 5 drones are mining in that location. Big Baneling explosion, but not on the Terran army. Looks like another cancel or maybe even a kill on that hatchery all the way at the bottom of the map. Clem is continuing his advantage over here up north as well. Yeah, this is Terran that we have never... GG. Wow. We have never seen Terran being played this well before. Honestly, phenomenal performance from Clem. A 5-0 victory over Serral is absolutely unheard of. The fact that Serral did not even take a single map is insane. So there was a series. There was a series earlier on in this tournament as well. I'm not going to cast it because it looks very similar to this one, where Serral faced off against Clem in the upper bracket finals. So this was a match to determine who was going to go straight to the quarterfinals. Actually, straight to the semifinals even. That particular match was a best of 5, and Serral lost that one to Clem 3-0. Meaning that in this tournament, Clem went 8-0 against Serral, the very best player in the world. Honestly, a ridiculous performance right there from Clem. So that means that Clem is the 2024 World Champion of StarCraft 2.